with pigs, right? Children's books, worried once again that they may offend Muslims. So, books that we've grown up with, had for generations. Pigs are also, as you know, unclean in Islam. So, because they're not allowed, the books are being pulled from public school libraries. Speaking of pigs again, another English example, a couple simply singing a tune to their baby, right? Kind of rocking the baby to sleep or whatever, because it happened to be the Peppa Pig theme song. They were thrown off a bus in England because of Muslims being upset. Oh, you can't do that. You can't sing about pigs. So when we talk about creeping Sharia, I mean, these are one example after another of freedoms slowly but surely being taken away, right? Any one of these in themselves, maybe not a big deal, right? Thrown off a bus, it's not very good, but I guess you can live with it. But it's the cumulative effect, right? When you get more and more and more of these cases, and I'm just giving you the smallest example, right? You see, wait a minute, something's going on. The freedoms that we fought overseas and died for and shed blood for, we're slowly losing them. And it's the old, the story of the frog in the boiling water. He doesn't even know until it's too late that it is too late. And are we in that situation here? Are we slowly almost becoming immune to the various diminution of our liberty? And will it be too late when we finally wake up? Here in Canada, I think, where are we at? Britain, a Christian school has been warned it'll be downgraded by education inspectors if it doesn't allow a local imam to lead their assembly. Now again, the easy way to get a handle on this is just to see if we could reverse this, right? If we allowed a Christian pastor into a local mosque, right? Whether in the West or in Saudi Arabia, imagine for a moment. You wouldn't even begin to talk about this, but it's happening all the time in the other direction, all around the West. So it's a one-way traffic here, this idea of tolerance, acceptance. It's a good ideal, but when it only goes in one direction, that's not too helpful, actually. Britain again. Now, this is scary. The Labour Party has said, as you can see, just a few months ago, we will make fear of Islam an aggravated crime. Imagine that. What is that, fear of Islam? I mean, with all due respect, I'm fearful of, if somebody comes in here shouting Allahu Akbar with a long knife or sword in his hand, I'd be fearful. And all of us should be. There's a place for a proper fear when those who have said, our aim is to destroy you, and many have said this. And here in England, the Labour Party wants to say, no, that'll be a crime. You can't even be afraid of Islam. This is called, doing ourselves in. It's not even the others. We're doing it to ourselves. When leaders in English political parties come up with this foolishness. Back in America, Catholic University, Washington, D.C., just a few months back. Now again, a Catholic school, right? Not a secular, not a public, a Catholic school. Muslims demanding that the crosses be taken down in that school. And they filed suit on this. Again, other way around, are we having Christians demanding in Muslim schools, whether Western Sydney or even here in Perth, that they take down their religious symbols? I don't think so. All right, so that was overseas. You're saying, boy, it's getting kind of scary out there. Good thing I live in Australia. Well, now it's your turn, because we have plenty here in Australia as well. I could do all night on Australian examples. Let me give you a very quick handful. Muslim taxi driver. We talked about unclean dogs, right? So you don't want to be blind, at least in some places, because if you have your guard or guide dog with you, they're being booted out of some taxis that have Muslim taxi drivers. Now, once again, imagine if you're a Christian taxi driver and for whatever reason you kicked out a paying fare, a Muslim. who wanted to get a lift. All hell would break loose. It would be on, well, it'd be on your 6 o'clock news tomorrow. ABC would banner headlines, right? SBS, it'd be all over. But because it's done in the other direction, you probably have never even heard of this one. This was up in Brisbane. A growing number of Muslim men with multiple wives, and exploiting the the tax system, the welfare system, the various payments. Again, big issue in Western Sydney. A lot of men with 4 wives. Each wife lives in a separate home, gets the various government handouts. The husband in turn visits each wife as occasion arises. And, well, we're funding it, right? It's your tax dollars who are paying for polygamy, even though, as you may recall, it's not actually legal in Australia, right? Think tank in Australia, based in Melbourne, as you can see, proposing that we have to teach all Australian students about the positive nature of Islam. Now, is there some positive aspects? Sure, there may well be. But generally speaking, you want a balanced approach. If there's some negative aspects, you probably should do that. And by the way, if you're teaching on Christianity in most public schools today, what are you going to get? Probably all the negative and nothing positive. So here we have the proposal. We got to, give the Islam a really good run in our schools. Back in Melbourne, families are being ordered to cover up during, well, in this case, 2010 Ramadan, right? Didn't want to have too many shoulders or thighs being flashed about, at least in certain municipal areas like swimming pools. If you want to swim here, well, sorry, even though you're paying with your tax dollars, you cover up because we don't want to offend our Muslim bathers. Sharia law at work in Australia. Academics showing just how entrenched various aspects of Islamic law is, whether Sharia finance, Sharia family law, the whole halal certification thing. There's tons of things going on with Islam, and even some, hopefully neutral academics have been writing about just how entrenched it is, including, of course, polygamy. Where are we at? Back in Melbourne, men banned as Muslim women win the backing of the local council. Well, as you know, women are not treated all that well in Islam, beginning with Muhammad and right through. Look at the Hadith, look at the Sirah. It's all quite clearly elaborated there. So again, people doing it today are simply following from the tradition and the teaching of their own faith. And so here we have, in this case, Melbourne councillors. We've been fighting for years to get rid of this kind of sexism and this kind of patriarchy. And now we're bringing it back in the name of not offending Muslims. Sydney, entire housing enclaves for Muslim-only community. Once again, aren't we supposed to be about unity and living together, and multiculturalism was about blending cultures and all equal? Well, this sounds like segregation. Sounds like apartheid. We want to live separate. Have nothing to do with you whiteys. This is getting to be a bit of a concern. We're bending over backwards to appease our Muslim minority. But again, if you tried to go in the other direction, right, we're going to have a Christian-only suburb, right? No Muslims allowed or no whatever. I don't think we'd get far. And again, ABC, SBS, the West Australian, they'd be on this like a rash. But it's okay if it's going in this direction. This is South Australia. Islamic Teachers College, in which non-Muslims, right, non-Muslims teaching there are being forced to wear the hijab or face coverings, otherwise be given the flick, right? What about the two-way traffic again? Muslims who come into a Christian school, I'm not sure if too many are getting the flick for their religious garb, but dare to go into their schools, and it's not as easy. Well, again, halal certification. I've got a number of articles on this on my website. Very important, billions of dollars every year. And by the way, it's not just that which is halal, which is very limited, pork and alcohol. I mean, we've got thousands and thousands of products today in Australia, as you know. Halal Easter eggs, for heaven's sakes. Halal dog food. A lot of Cadbury's chocolates are all halal approved. And of course, all those are, you got to pay fees to various Islamic certification boards to make sure it's halal. So there's big money going into these certification boards, and the question is, where in turn does that money go to, right? Is it funding overseas terrorism, which some in cases it's been found to be doing exactly that. And here we see Indonesia, about religious groups and so on, and the inflated prices of certification. Sydney again, New South Wales, forced underage marriage, quite common. Again, Western Sydney, the biggest Muslim population we have. A sex offender in, Geelong, okay, I'm from Melbourne. Here's a guy who, indecently assaulted a boy, tried to do it with another, but he was basically, the charges were dropped. Why? Well, there's cultural differences, the judge said. You know, you guys do things differently in Saudi Arabia, or, Islam's a bit different. So who are we to push our values on you? So go ahead. If you want to assault boys and girls, it's your culture. We don't want to offend you. And this is not a one-off, sadly. This is happening too often. Here is a battered and bruised gal, one of many, basically too afraid to even tell her story because of, again, these arranged marriages, forced against their will to marry often men who they've never met in their life until the day of the consummation. Sydney, Western Sydney, here was a fellow obviously a bit concerned about Islam. Well, he was targeted in his own home. So again, we're not talking Saudi Arabia here. We're not talking, this is, you guys, this is Australia. This is happening here. People are being attacked in their own homes. Again, women being beaten, kept as sex slaves. What are we talking about? Mecca, right? Tripoli? No, this is Sydney, Australia. Again, so many cases of this that we're unearthing. As you know, it's not just creeping Sharia. We're having cases of jihad, attempted attacks on people, including just here in Melbourne, late last year, right? Endeavour Hills Police Station, you probably remember that one. Here's a radical Muslim group boasting about using the funding they're getting to train up hot-headed imams and others. This is in Melbourne, in one of our stronger areas of Islamic population. Here's a gal, Qantas worker, filed a discrimination case against Qantas. Why? They told her, take your lousy crucifix off. You can't have it, right? Women, of course, of the Islamic faith, still allowed to have their headscarves, but this gal, not so lucky. Monash Hospital, Melbourne, agrees to a female-only doctor request. One complaint from a Muslim. So again, here we're going back to separation, back to the old days. Western Sydney again, you can see it right here, right? Don't take mine, you can see it. A big meeting at a public university in Sydney, all the women stuck in the back, all the men up front. Haven't we been fighting this for the last, 60, 70 years? Wasn't feminism all about getting rid of this kind of sexism and so on? Well, it's happening right now in our universities. Oops. Gold Coast, kebab owner, quite happily admitting to his polygamy, saying, hey, it should be legal, of course. This is Islam, this is what we do. We don't abide by your laws. Sharia law is what should reign in Australia. Islam, come on. This is you guys. This is Perth. Anybody recognize this guy? Come on. Michael Nahan. I used to work with Mike in IPA Melbourne. I used to work Institute of Public Affairs with Mike. And here he is telling us we have to do all we can, including with your tax dollars, to tell everybody that Islam is a religion of peace, and it's a good bunch, and everything's cool and neat. So here he is meeting with his Muslim buddies. Now, again, that's fine, but, and I'm from Victoria, so maybe I missed something, but have you caught Mike Nahan with a group of Christians saying we need to do the same thing? Or maybe a group of Buddhists? Or is it just Islam that Mike is concerned about, all right? So come on, that was just a month ago. Melbourne teacher receiving threats. Well, that's what? Yesterday, for heaven's sakes. Primary school teacher being forced to quit her job because she was asked about Muhammad, what he was like, and said, well, some of his buddies weren't the best kind of characters. You might call them terrorists. In fact, if you know anything about Muhammad, you could call him a terrorist. But for that, she's looking like she'll be out of a job. All right, so that was Islam. That's one. We could spend the night there, and we'd keep plenty busy. But as I say, from my perspective, there's two major areas of threat. They're different in their own ways. But in both cases, we're losing some freedoms. We're losing some liberties. And if you love freedom, as you should, and democracy, well, maybe you should be a little bit concerned. Maybe you should be a little bit riled about some of this and say, wait a minute, what's going on? How is this happening that a small group, whether a small group of Muslims or whoever, can have such a radical impact on the rest of the nation and in fact strip away some of our basic rights and freedoms? So again, overseas, go back a few years, bring it up to date, right? Canada, we'll start with. Here's a sports announcer, famous television personality in Canada. He's out of a job. He's looking for new work. Why? Well, he simply said, in a very innocuous way, that he supports what we might call traditional marriage. He actually thinks a man and a woman is the stuff of marriage. And for simply suggesting what everybody always has said for the last, how many thousands of years, and by the way, I document all this in my books. Marriage and family are not recent inventions of America in the 1950s